I'm interested in finding out what is correct, and I'm also finding out how people come to these conclusions and what the facts are. Do I get things wrong? Absolutely, I get things wrong, but I try to correct them.
Joe Rogan is a naughty little stand-up comedian, podcast host, MMA commentator, naughty and bad. Somebody with his level of authority as a stand-up comedian, MMA commentator, and podcast host should watch his words. Well, not his words, the words of the people he's talking to, right? He should watch their words and make them say. Joe Rogan, podcast host, MMA commentator, and stand-up comedian, should make his guests say the things that people in authority have told him are acceptable to say. And if those guests try and say anything else other than the things that the people in authority said is okay to say, Joe Rogan should spin kick them in the liver. At least. I mean, my God, who does Joe Rogan think he is not to spin kick people in the liver for saying words that aren't specifically in line with what other people in positions of authority think? I don't know where you stand on this controversy. You can stand wherever you want as far as I'm concerned. I believe in your right to stand where you like on this controversy. But I also would suggest that we all, humans on the planet alive today, have a stake in this debate of what Joe Rogan, stand-up comedian, MMA commentator, podcast host, is responsible for and not responsible for. As I understand it, when people have conversations, like if I have a conversation with you, I'm responsible for the words coming out of a mouth made by a brain. And up until this point in my life, I thought I was responsible for the words coming out of my mouth, formulated by my brain. But we're moving into a period of time, ladies and gentlemen, where the narrative is becoming so fraught, and there's such a desperate scrabble for control now, that we're being told that you can become responsible for the words coming out of another person's mouth and the thoughts in their brain. What level of madness is this? Of mad thought word policing is this? I mean, what are we supposed to do? The language that's used around this bothers me a little bit. He stands accused of propagating medical misinformation. This very channel upon which you are watching my face right now, ladies and gentlemen, is under the sword of Damocles. Not one, but 2 strikes for medical misinformation. There are certain key words that I would not even dare to say for fear of losing 9 years worth of work on this channel. I know that I am free, but I just don't feel very free when people are threatening me like that. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not sure, because nobody's actually handed me the guidebook. YouTube hasn't. Instagram, when they permanently deleted my Instagram account with 22,500 followers with no warning, they didn't tell me what I'd done wrong. They won't specify. And we're not given a guidebook. We only get to find out that we've hit the tripwire or pressed the landmine after we've pressed it or tripped it. The explosion's already happened, and then we just have to deal with the damage, and there's nothing we can do about it because the damage is already done. This situation of only letting people know post hoc, after the fact, that they've done something wrong. And to be quite honest with you, of the 2 interviews that I got a medical misinformation strike, the David Icke interview, yeah, I know why I got a strike for that. The Sam Vaknin one, which you can look up on other platforms, I don't know I genuinely have no idea what we could have got the medical misinformation strike for. So, when I read, forgive my cynicism now after these personal experiences, Joe Rogan stands accused of propagating medical misinformation, I say to myself, you know what, let's all calm down before we rush to defend our side and attack the other side, because in this day in which we live, we can only have two sides, like two hands. Gadsard calls it epistemological dichotomania. It's a kind of mass psychosis. You have to pick a side, and you just squeeze your eyes tightly closed, you jam your fingers in your ears, and you go, yeah, and you just shout whatever slogan your side says. And whenever the other side speaks, you go, blah, 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 to drown them out. Because that's what debate is in the times in which we live, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it has become. Is medical misinformation a sort of a new code, an Orwellian code for you saying things that I don't want you to say? Because that's how it seems. I'd like, if we don't rush to the side that we're on, and we just sit and we just stay rational, because I'm not sure about any of this stuff, man. I'm letting the data come in. I'm like, oh, maybe that's a solution. Maybe this shouldn't be the primary solution. I don't know. Who really knows with the data we've got? It's all very fresh. It's all very new. There's a lot of certainty, a lot of rigid certainty out here. And I'm like, how the F and how the people are so certain? Is it code for you're saying something I don't want you to say? Because if we're in a situation where medical misinformation has become, this is just code for you're saying things that are against the dominant narrative, and you're basically committing a thought crime, and we're only going to tell you after you did it that you did it, and we're not going to explain specifically what the medical misinformation was, nor are we going to issue a rule book. That just generates a culture of fear. That just generates a culture of paranoia, where I'm constantly like, oh, there's the mine over there, is the tripwire over there? What can I say and what can I not say? Because I don't even know. I'll just say less. That's the net result. I'll just say less. Let me be clear. This is not science. This is absolutely not science. Against my will in my degree, I wanted to do a degree that was like psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, plunging the depths of the shadow, but I did a BSc, a Bachelor of Science in Behavioural Psychology at Aston University. And we were forced to learn statistics and research methods. And I was forced, against my will, though it did me good, like being forced to eat broccoli, to read scientific research, published research papers, and then how to cite those papers. Anybody can do this. Pick any topic you like, anything, and go to Google Scholar and run your favorite topic through Google Scholar. Find yourself a peer-reviewed paper. Read the abstract. Skim read the introduction, and then go to the conclusion. You will find that the language of the conclusion is something like, based on the data we found here in this research, which is fallible, we think that the statistical analysis indicates that our hypothesis was proven true, or rather, our negative hypothesis was proven to be untrue. Here are our suggestions for how we could have done the research better, and here are our suggestions for other people looking to replicate this research in the future. Do you hear the way that sounds? Kind of tentative, kind of reasonable, even a lot of like openness to other points of view. That's the science. I know. I did my own scientific experiments. Didn't want to. Had to pass the degree, and I had to be in other people's scientific experiments, and I had to be a part of their research and analysis. That's how you got your degree. That's how you passed. This is not science. Don't let anybody browbeat you into thinking that shouting rigid orthodoxy from a pulpit under the threat of pain and under the threat of punishment if you deviate from it is science. That is a cult. That is the most extreme end of a toxic manifestation of religion. It's dogma, it's cult, and it's an adherence to cult-like orthodoxy. You can't tell people, say what we want you to say or else. Now, I'm not going to sit here and cry tears for a massive corporation like Spotify worth several $1 billion. But if you believe in capitalism and you want to keep capitalism fair and competitive, what's being done in the smear campaign to Joe goes down to the smear campaign to Spotify. Their shares have dropped in value by nearly 19% in less than a week. And there are other performers and other podcast hosts on that platform who are being pressured to leave the platform. The narrative here is, do what we say, or we will delete your YouTube channel and all the work that you've put into it. Now that they've reaped their advertising revenue from my hard work, from 9 years of my hard work, and I've brought people to their platform and given them content, because without me, without, if you're a content creator, without you, without Joe Rogan, who are they? Who are they? Who are any of these platforms without we the people? We're the ones producing all the effing content, and we have no rights whatsoever. As soon as a different political agenda, and this is political, it's not scientific, not wholly scientific anyway, a different political agenda comes into view, you're told, don't talk about it. If you do, this is what we're being told, don't talk about this. Because if you do, we're not going to warn you, we're not going to tell you what you can and can't say, you'll find out what you couldn't say when you've already been punished for saying the wrong thing. That is insane. Completely insane. And it is totally unacceptable in any country that considers itself to be a modern first world liberal democracy. This is not science. If somebody says something that you don't like, or that you disagree with, or you want to call medical misinformation, give me the bullet points for the medical misinformation. If you agree with Joe Rogan being censored, and you agree with Spotify being punished in this way, and having its share value dropped deliberately, it's an attack. They're going straight for the jugular. They're going straight for people's money. They're going straight for their livelihoods. They're going straight for their platforms. If you believe that it's medical misinformation and it's dangerous, give me bullet points below in the comments what the medical misinformation is. I dare you to try. Final point. If our standard is anybody who gives medical misinformation, meaning if you give a piece of medical advice that is later found to be medical misinformation, if the standard is that person should be cancelled because they're risking people's lives, why don't we apply it to everybody across the political spectrum? Why are we only applying it to the people on the opposing team? Because God knows many people have released what is effectively medical misinformation. If I tell you this way of protecting yourself from a threat, you know what I'm talking about, absolutely doesn't work, and then a month later I tell you it absolutely does work, how does that not count as medical misinformation? It must. By the standards of this cult orthodoxy, it must. And therefore, the punishment should be cancellation for that person. Is it? These are dangerous, dangerous games we're playing. I suggest we drop the term medical misinformation at this point on this subject until we know more, until we've gathered more data. And this data, ladies and gents, it's going to take years to collect and years to analyze. There is so much we don't know right now. So very much we don't know. We're coming out of it, but we're still in it. There's still the fog of war effect. There's still the fog of war. And once that fog is cleared, then we will know with greater clarity, because we'll have better numbers. If seeking greater clarity and truth is our actual objective. And I'm not entirely sure at this point that it is. You may not like Joe Rogan, you may not care about Spotify, you may not care about podcasts, but you really should care about freedom of speech. Just because you're saying what this authoritarian cult wants you to say today, you might find yourself saying something that authoritarian cult doesn't want you to say tomorrow. And then where will you be? Will you simply change your map to fit the territory? Will you simply change your perceptions of reality to fit the authoritarian external pressure? There's nothing more 1984 or Orwellian than doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. I wish you well, and I hope to speak to you soon. Thank you.